This past year, we hit a brand new record, $274 million, the highest amount ever given back in the history of Treasury. So
Wow.
I'm very proud of my team for that.
Yeah. So with me today is our Pennsylvania treasurer, Stacy Garrity, and I can't thank you enough for coming here today. We were just talking for a few minutes before we started recording, and you just have such a busy schedule, and you're doing work and taking care of voicemails and things like that while you're sitting here. I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Bob.
I want to go through a little bit of your background first, but then I'm starting to go through this and I'm thinking to myself, I probably should let you tell it because it's your story. And I have a lot of highlights here and underlines. So a couple of things I want to ask you along the way, but
Sure.
Give me a little bit of just your background including the military background, which is super impressive. So where did you grow up? And let's start from there.
Okay. So grew up and raised in Bradford County.
Yep.
So I'm your neighbor.
Okay. I say yep as if you got that right.
Yeah.
Okay, good job.
Yeah. So Sarah, PA, graduated from Sarah High School. First person in my family to go to college. Went to Bloomsburg University.
So did I.
Oh,
great choice.
Yes, very good choice. And then never intended to stay in the area, but ended up working in Towanda, Pennsylvania at Global Tungsten and Powders for over 3 decades.
Wow.
So worked my way up to be the first one of two of the first female vice presidents of the company.
Nice.
Yes, ran 2 out of 3 of our business units for a while. And then my last assignment was vice president of government affairs and industry liaison, which was perfect because I was able to do things like push for I call it don't buy from the bad guys. So it was legislation that we got through the National Defense Authorization Act. And basically what it was is for 20 years, DOD, so Department of Defense, had been incorporating Chinese tungsten into our munitions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I wanted them to buy America, which they didn't do. So instead, we flipped it around to say, okay, buy from whoever you want, but don't buy from China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. It made it through. It became law, and it not only helped Global Tungsten and Powders, but it helped a lot of manufacturers in the United States. So that is my real passion, is the U.S. industrial base.
Oh, that's really neat. That's really neat. So was that the moment where you said, I think I'd be interested in being treasurer?
Not really.
Okay.
So I also you alluded to my military career. So I spent 30 years in the United States Army Reserves. I was an MP, which means your money's safe with me, military police, and had 3 deployments. Now I'm going to age myself because the first one was Desert Storm in 91, and then 03, 04, and 08, 09. So Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. And my last deployment was at Camp Bucca, which is in southern Iraq, and I was the acting battalion commander, had 1,200 soldiers under my command. And we ran an internment facility with 7,000 detainees. We were the very first internment facility to have 0 escape attempts and 0 abuse allegations. So I hit my mandatory retirement date in 2016.
Okay.
And if it wouldn't have been for that, I would still be serving, and I would have never even considered running for treasurer because serving was and is the honor of my lifetime. So it was great for a couple of years because I was maybe home 1 weekend a month, maybe. And so after I hit my mandatory retirement date, which was in June, my second weekend home, my husband looked at me and said, "Don't you have somewhere you have to be?" And I said, "No, I don't. Isn't this great?"
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. So his golf handicap suffered a bit. Now it's the best it's ever been, the lowest it's ever been.
Right, you're never home.
No, so it's all good.
That's funny.
But I first became interested. So after a couple of years, I thought, you know what, I need to serve again. And there's so many different ways to serve. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But at that time, if you recall, Congressman Marino was resigning and they were going to have a special election.
Mm-hmm.
So it was only 2.5 weeks out. And I called Tina Pickett, our state rep. And I said, Tina, if I want to get into politics at some point, should I jump in just so that I can meet, some of the different counties and the leaders in the party? And she said, absolutely. Now, I was only intending to kind of dip my toe in it. She had people in Towanda the very next day So I kind of got
That
pushed
doesn't
into
surprise
the
me.
deep end.
She's fantastic.
She's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So it was a huge field, crowded field. There were 31 people. So my whole goal was to make it through a round, be able to do, my 5-minute speech and then the 3-minute speech. And so I finished in the top 20% and I was delighted.
Nice.
It was a wonderful experience. Of course, then our congressman became Fred Keller and, I was on board with Fred. We're dear friends. He's wonderful. And I guess things worked out how they should be because we lost that seat. And so our congressman is now Dan Muser.
Right.
So when we had, in 20, the row offices were up. So they're always on the presidential cycle. People remembered me and they reached out and said, would you like to run for treasurer or auditor general? Now, if I would have been smart, auditor general didn't have an incumbent. But I said, absolutely not. I'm not running for statewide. I'm from Bradford County.
You never take the easy way.
Yeah. So no, forget it. And so they found somebody to run. Now our auditor general, Tim DeFore, really couldn't find somebody to run for treasurer because there was an incumbent and he was very popular from Philadelphia, ex-deputy mayor under Ed Rendell, Rhodes Scholar, quite accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And so I continued to say no, but then they didn't find anybody. And, I asked my church to pray about it. We got it on the prayer chain. And then, I just thought, if not me, then who? So I jumped in and the doors were open. GTP was very accommodating and said, they gave me a lot of flexibility to be able to run.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you did a lot for them while you were there too. So it was good to see that return. Man, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
When you got into the role as treasurer, which was how many years ago?
So it was January of 21.
21.
So a little over 2.5 years ago.
So it's not that long ago, but was there things in that role that have surprised you? Things that you, let's first back up. What does a treasurer do? Because I don't think most people understand really what the treasurer, just in the 10 minutes before we started filming and you were telling me some things you're doing, I didn't realize you did that much.
Right.
There's so much you're doing.
So the biggest thing is to be the fiscal watchdog for our taxpayer dollars. And that's $160 billion. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
And of the $160 billion, we invest directly just about $50 billion. I also sit on 16 boards and commissions. So the three biggest are pension boards.
Sure.
So CSRS,
right.
PSERS, and PMERS. So that would be, the state workers, teachers, and municipalities. And also I run a lot of consumer programs. So run unclaimed property. So we have $4.5 billion of unclaimed property, which means 1 in 10 Pennsylvanians has unclaimed property. The average claim is about $1,600. So this past year, we hit a brand new record, $274 million, the highest amount ever given back in the history of Treasury. So
Wow.
I'm very proud of my team for that.
Yeah. I'm sure you must have a big team to help you with all that.
I do.
That's a lot of money.
I'm very blessed to have a big team. We have about 330 employees in Treasury.
Really?
Yes.
What? I would never have guessed
Yes.
that high.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's a lot of money to give away, so that makes more sense.
Well, this is for all of Treasury, not just
Okay.
unclaimed property. And so we also run the PA 529 College and Career Savings Program. So there are about 290,000 accounts. That program is wonderful. It really helps families save for education. We have cut fees in the last 2 years, about $11 million in fee reductions, which is good.
Yeah.
And families have saved just about $7 billion for their kids' education. And then we also run PA ABLE, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And that's for people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it just helps them save and their families save. Just a few years ago, if people save for their disabilities, they risked not being able to get their federal entitlements like SSI. So this is really a wonderful program. Pennsylvania is part of a 19-state National ABLE Alliance. And of those 19 states, we have 25% of the assets under management. So we're by far the largest state, and we're just about ready to cross that $100 million threshold. And that, I said, is a fairly new program. We're just in the 6th year.
Yeah, that's nice to be on the leading edge of something. I appreciate the effort you're putting
Well,
shoulder into that
it's
one.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you not do? How about that?
Okay.
There's got to be things that people call you for. You're like, hey, that's outside of my realm.
They do. People always assume that we're handling the taxes, which we don't. That's Department of Revenue. Yeah. But if they call us, we have a contact and we help them. So I never say, go see this agency. And people always assume that we're responsible for unemployment compensation. Now, we make the payments, but that program is run by Labor and Industry, so the Department of L&I. So they'll take the applications, they determine, if the person's eligible, but once they send the payments over to us, we push them out, within a couple of days.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. We do a lot of work with a lot of small business entities, and so understanding where all those levers get pulled,
Yes.
where these checks go,
Now, interesting, we make every payment in the Commonwealth. So that's close to 21 million payments a year. And to put it in context, that's 3 payments a second.
Oh, really?
Yes. So a fun fact.
That is a fun fact. It's a little overwhelming. Talk to me about if I go back to the unclaimed property.
Yes.
I find that really interesting because we're a financial planning firm. So we actually have some of our advisors actually spend a good amount of time throughout the year. Sometimes it seems like a waste of time because it's not, a hit on every client, but we spend some time going through that and entering their names and seeing if there's something there. And we find some stuff sometimes on your website through your portal, and we find $100, a couple things here and there. So tell me more, if I could pick your brain a little bit, like what is unclaimed property? What does that constitute?
Right. So it can be a lot of different things. It could be money in forgotten bank accounts. It could be uncashed checks, insurance policies, rebates, old stock certificates. But there's also tangible items. And we get those items largely from abandoned safe deposit boxes. Mm. And the tangible items could be jewelry, collectibles, and what a lot of people don't realize, we get a lot of military decorations in those abandoned safe deposit boxes.
Interesting. Okay.
And so, of course, since I'm a veteran, I, make that a priority.
Sure.
Returning those is really near and dear to my heart because every medal, if it's a dog tag, we have dog tags from World War I even in our vault.
Really?
And so that is really a symbol of the sacrifice of the veteran or the veteran's family.
Yeah.
So far since taking office, I've given back 385, including 6 Purple Hearts and 3 Bronze Stars.
In just a couple of years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. But we still have 454.
Now, those are the families going to your site and reaching out to you and saying, hey, I think this is ours?
Well, sometimes they do, but a lot of times when we get those in, since they've been abandoned, so for us to get them, they've been dormant for 3 years.
Okay.
And then by statute, the financial institutions have to escheat them to the Treasury. So we will do a fair amount of detective work to find who these medals belong to. And I'll give you an example. So this is kind of a neat story. So there was a U.S. Army veteran, World War II, Frank Musto, and he was a private. So he was in 2 big battles, one in Italy and one in France, and he was wounded. So, of course, he had a Purple Heart. So he had a lot of different medals. Some of his military decorations were in the safe deposit of one of his sons who passed away. Mm. And so the family thought they were lost forever. So what was in his safe deposit box was it was the Bronze Star, actually, not the Purple Heart. And it was a bullet casing engraved U.S. Army Frank Musto, 1923 to 2008.
Wow.
So we tracked down his family. And we said, hey, would you like us to come and present them to you? And I always offer that. And with that, I bring a proclamation from Treasury that basically thanks the family for their sacrifice and recognizes the service, just to make it more special. So we set up a little ceremony at a VFW in Lower Burrell, which is in Westmoreland County. And they had a bunch of generations come. They brought awesome. A shadow box with his World War II uniform. Oh. They had all the other decorations except that Bronze Star. And the family, they were so moved that they came to Treasury. They came to Harrisburg.
Really?
And I gave them a tour of the vault.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
If I could ask you about that vault, is it big enough to hold all the stuff you're talking about?
So, largest working vault in the nation, Bob.
Really?
Yes, built in Yes, right in Harrisburg, right in my building. So built in 1939, and at that time the cost was just under $600,000. So if you adjusted that for inflation today, it would be about $13 million.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Right.
Okay.
400 tons of steel, and that front door alone is 60 tons. So I always tell people, if you've watched the movie Ocean's 11, it's kind of like that, minus George Clooney, of course. But when you get behind those doors, that's where we have, a lot of the tangible property and the decorations.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That must be amazing. Do you give tours of that?
I do.
Do you really?
Now, they hadn't really given tours before I got there, but I'm really trying to promote unclaimed property.
Yeah.
And so I'll have constituents come. We'll have, some if a Boy Scout group comes. We have a lot of reporters come, a lot of that generates a lot of interest. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I really don't turn away anybody.
Just walking through that or seeing that. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Now, your team before this conversation, they had told me that you were working on ways to make unclaimed property even easier to claim. What is that all
So
about?
that's called Pennsylvania Money Match.
Okay.
And it is Senate Bill 24. And believe it or not, it passed the Senate unanimously back in June.
Oh, something did? That's
yes,
great.
Something different. So what that would allow Treasury to do is proactively return up to $5,000 to single owner accounts. And so a lot of people, as you know, they don't even know they have unclaimed property.
Sure.
And so they wouldn't have to fill out any forms. They wouldn't have to do anything. This actually eliminates red tape. And
this got passed? That's amazing.
Well, it got passed in the Senate.
Okay.
It is not passed in the House.
All right. We'll see.
Now, I am hoping that they will pass it, and I know that the governor would sign it immediately because especially right now with inflation so high, gas is on the way back up.
Sure.
Groceries are so expensive. It's going to be tough this winter to heat your house.
Yeah.
So this would go a long way to help people that are struggling.
Yeah. We see that as advisors. We see people come in with usually inherited stuff.
Yes.
And we have a nice booklet that helps them actually sort of what I call pick up the pieces if a loved one left you without any map of where everything is. And so we can kind of, like you said, do some detective work. But a lot of times they're looking at some smaller accounts and they're so overwhelmed. They've been on the phone 6 times, for an hour each time. So they just throw it to us and say, can you figure out how to get that to us? And it's a challenge. So red tape removal I'm a big fan.
Oh, good.
I'm a big fan. Well, I want to also going back, you hit on a couple of things I want to talk about, is the 529 plan, if you could. That's, again, as financial planners, a lot of folks saving for college. I have 2 kids in Penn State right now, so I know the bills are hefty.
Yes.
So talk to me about the 529 program. I know you have 2 different types. You got the guaranteed savings and you've got the investment side. Can you just give a quick commercial? Because I don't think people really understand the difference between the two, especially younger couples that might be looking for the first time.
You're right. So, the short answer is these programs are just a tremendous way to save for college. But there are 2 different accounts, like you said. So there's the guaranteed savings plan, which is the GSP. And basically what that allows families to do is to save at today's tuition rates to meet tomorrow's tuition costs. So if you had a child that's going to go to college, if you buy 3 credits,
right,
it's going to cost them in 10 years or 15 years the same amount of money. So it takes inflation out of the equation, especially right now. It's fantastic.
Yep.
And then we have the investment plan. So it's the PAIP. And so basically that offers a variety of investment options, and those earnings are tied to financial market performance. So Vanguard manages that for us, and so they can choose, and it's very inexpensive. So interesting, our IP is one of the few plans in the nation that's rated by Morningstar. So we have a silver rating, and we've had that for 3 consecutive years. And what that means, it's one of the best plans in the entire country, and they specifically recognized our low costs and our good stewardship of the plan. So we're really proud about that.
Yeah, and I as a planner, I would usually describe it to someone looking at the 2 options there is kind of like if you're a do-it-yourselfer or you'd like to hand off, right? So you could hand off to the state,
if you want to set it and forget it, pick the GSP.
Exactly. If you want to manage, think you do better than what they would do, then you can do the IP.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. Now, one thing that's real quick I want to point out, which is super important, I think, is on the guaranteed savings side, that's pegged to certain types of tuition, certain levels of tuition, right? So some schools go faster on the inflation, if you will, than others. The tuition just climbs fast. So it's important that they pay attention to that feature, right? It
is. And then so they can pick whether their child is going to go to a state school or a different kind of institution. I also should mention that a lot of people think that the 529 plan is just for 4-year degrees. And so I'm always liking to point out that it's not just 4-year degrees. It can be community college, technical schools, qualified apprenticeship programs, even some K through 12.
Yeah. Yeah. I was around when they first came out with 529 plans, and they were quite restrictive. And
Yes.
they've become much more broader in their way where you can spend the money. So
they are very flexible. I should also, while we're on 529, I want to mention Keystone Scholars.
Yep.
So what
my next question.
Oh, it was.
That's
okay.
Right. It's perfect.
So I'm sorry, beat you to the punch.
Let's go for it.
So Keystone Scholars is fairly new, so a lot of people don't know about it. But what it does, it gives a $100 jump start for babies born or adopted by Pennsylvania families after January 1st, 2019. And so we send a letter to families about 5 months after the baby's born to let them know they have a Keystone Scholars account. And so then families can register online and link it to a 529 plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so the deposits, they go through investments. They are overseen by Treasury. Oh, by the way, this is zero taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Okay. So no taxpayer dollars go through this. It's through surplus of the GSP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we can only have Keystone Scholars if the GSP is over 110% funded.
Gotcha.
Which right now it's something like 134%. So it's going very well.
Yeah. So that might go away. So if you've had a baby recently or are about to,
yes,
yeah,
go
absolutely.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a great idea. That's a great idea because it sets up a habit. That's what we often talk about in our office. People get in these bad habits, and one of the biggest ones is not saving for their retirement, not saving for anything.
Well, yes. So we kind of call it our secret weapon because it's more than money.
That's very military of you.
Yeah, yes, isn't it? So it's really about increasing parental expectations for their child's future, because research shows that programs like Keystone Scholars, they really make a difference. Children with a college savings plan in their name, an account, even if it's less than $500, they're 3 times more likely to pursue some sort of post-secondary education and 4 times more likely to graduate than those that have no college savings account. So that's really interesting.
Super interesting. Yeah. So Keystone Scholars, to get that letter 5 months or so, and if they don't get a letter, can they still?
The $100 is already there.
Yeah.
It's already there, so they can go in at any time.
Okay.
And link to the account.
Perfect.
To a 529, which you can start a 529 now with $0. And the minimum contribution is $1. So we've really done a lot to try and make it as easy as possible for people to start an account.
Here's my out-of-the-box question for you. I think that states and on the state level and federal level, everyone's done a wonderful job making 529s an option and savings accounts, ways to save for college. Is there any secret sauce to how to cap the growth of the tuition costs?
Oh my gosh.
That's kind of a loaded question and probably too big to answer in this conversation, but it has gone up so quickly. For you guys to be able to keep pace with it on the guaranteed side is tremendous and very commendable. It's tough for folks. Yeah.
Well, it is tough for folks. And I always say that really needs to be a larger conversation. I think they need to put a committee together and really look at it, and not just education, at the post-secondary level, but I think, education in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we throw so much money at it every year, increasing almost $1 billion. And so I think, we're going to have to make some tough decisions and really look at it and see what we need to do to bring down costs, because, our state is in a structural deficit, which means right now we're spending about $1.5 billion more a year than what we're bringing in.
Okay.
And that number increases, Bob, to $3 billion in 2 years, which means, we need to make some decisions to bring our costs down and try and find ways to generate more revenue.
Yeah, I'm going to go off this again for another side story. Several months ago, my first time meeting you, you came to our open house.
Yes, I did.
In Sayre, and it was wonderful. I appreciate being there. And one of my other partners, John, was with us, and we started talking to you. And now John is a numbers, stats guy. He loves managing the portfolios, and he's on our local school board. And when you started talking, John's eyes got as big as saucers, and he was just like, and you just dropped all these statistics. You're like, I love what you guys are doing, and people need financial planning help, and I could just see John's he was so excited. He's like, I absolutely love her. She is talking my language. And you guys started talking about all kinds of things with education. So what I wanted to commend you for, and this is just just a guy saying thank you, is that I think that a long time out here, we need people to start making some hard decisions if we want things to be as good as they have been. And I do really appreciate it. I feel like you've made some already and you continue to work toward those. I think that's really valuable. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Well, thank you. It's really my honor.
You're not finished, though. There's still tons
of work.
Yeah,
no, there is tons of work, but we owe it to our kids and our grandkids.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't understand that till I had kids, and now I get it. So anyway, speaking of taking care of folks, one other question you mentioned already, the PA ABLE plan. Can you talk a little bit more about that was a little bit new to me when I looked into that and understood it better. So, what is it? Who exactly does that help?
Okay, so it's a program that helps people with disabilities and their families. It gives them a chance without impacting their eligibility for important benefits they depend on, like supplemental security income or medical assistance. So in the past, people with disabilities who saved money sometimes became ineligible for their critical benefits. So this PA ABLE changed that. Now, this federal ABLE law, so this is pretty new. It was enacted in 2014 by Senator Bob Casey.
Okay.
And it was enacted in Pennsylvania by Lisa Baker.
Okay.
In 2016. And so the first deposit to a PA ABLE account was made in 2017. So that's why I said we're just like on the 6th year. So right now we have in Pennsylvania more than 8,000 ABLE accounts we're just getting close to that $100 million threshold. Now, I should also mention that I'm the inaugural chair of the National ABLE Savings Plan Network, and that is formed by the National Association of State Treasurers. So ABLE is very flexible. So it helps you save for, everyday accounts. It's almost like a traditional checking account.
Right.
So people can use it for like, health expenses, food, housing, transportation, long-term expenses, like if somebody wanted to get assistive technology or adaptive vehicles. Right now, there is a limitation because right now your disability had to occur before the age of 26. But I have some good news on that front.
Oh, nice.
So the feds just passed the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. And what that does is it changes the age from 26 to 46. And why that is so important is because that's going to help 6 million more Americans be eligible for ABLE, including 1 million veterans. And as you know, a lot of our veterans, their injuries, happened after the age of 26.
Yeah.
And these brave men and women deserve, a chance to save for their disabilities, just like everybody else. Now, what I love about Pennsylvania is that the ABLE Age Adjustment Act, the prime sponsor was Bob Casey. A co-sponsor was Pat Toomey. Okay. And then 17 out of 18 of our congressmen, we had 18 at the time that it was passed, co-sponsored. So Pennsylvania led the way. We had the highest number of co-sponsors of any state in the nation. So I was really proud about that.
Yeah,
now, I called and asked all of them, but I didn't have to do a whole lot of arm twisting. Everybody jumped on very willingly.
And I did read there is I think it's somewhere around $500,000, right, that you can contribute into this fund before it kind of gets capped out. I mean, that's a lot of weight, but I think it's $17,000 a year.
It's $17,000 a year,
right? But
and
various people can contribute, like families.
Oh yeah,
it's not just like a spouse of someone who's disabled or a parent. It's
anybody can contribute, just like the 529. You can make a gift when if your kids have too many toys. Then say, hey, make a contribution to the 529 plan.
You're right. I forget that anybody can contribute because it's usually just parents and grandparents. I don't know anyone that's offered me to fund my kids' 529 plan. But anyway, that's great. I love what you're doing on that. Can we talk for a sec about, you mentioned some of the pension plans that you're working with, that you're sitting on these boards.
Absolutely.
We do a ton of work with school teachers, retiring school teachers and working school teachers thinking of retirement. How's the pension plan for Peasers?
So Peasers so I'm 1 out of 15 board members, first of all. So Peasers is going, I would say, quite well as opposed to when I first got on the board.
Okay.
So we're about 62% funded, but what we've done in the past year or so is change the asset allocation to basically get out of hedge funds, reduce the illiquids, which means we reduce fees.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, which is so incredibly important. So change the asset allocation, also change the upper management. So we have a new executive director, have a new chief counsel, and we have a new chief investment officer. So the team is really working well together. Before, we kind of had two factions, the reformers, which I sort of led the charge on that, versus the other group. And now we're kind of all, we're all in the boat rowing in the same direction. So I'm quite pleased. So I think, the funding levels will continue to go up, and we're really continuing to really have, we're really working to offer a lot more transparency.
Yeah. I love the idea of getting in the boat together, rowing in the same direction.
Yes.
That's a rarity these days. So
it is.
But it can also be super powerful, because I've been on boards where everybody's going in the other direction, and it's just stagnant time, and it's frustrating. But boy, it can be powerful when you get on the same page.
It can. And so I'm very excited about the direction that the board's going, and, and just the change in the asset allocation is, it's really going to help the funding status.
Simplify it, clean it up a little bit. And
exactly. It was so incredibly complicated.
And you're going to have, with inflation and what's going on, interest rates, and you guys, it's going to be challenging, but if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. But there's 15 of you, so
that's right.
Best of luck. Keep up the good work then. What about, I guess, if there's anything specific you want to talk about, you're doing a lot of things. You have a lot of programs. I'm happy to have you tell us about anything that I haven't touched on yet.
I think I'd like to mention Invest.
Okay.
Because a lot of people don't know about Invest,
which
is why I just hired a manager to promote the program. And why I think it's important is because it's an easy way for local government agencies and nonprofits like townships, like counties, school districts, volunteer fire departments, libraries, United Ways even, to invest, and they can invest either short-term or longer-term. So the current interest rate is just a little over 5.25%, and you'll be very interested in this. So it's really a lot better than an interest-bearing checking account or savings account. So Invest is more than 30 years old, but I found out that Treasury really hasn't been promoting it much. But it's kind of like a money market fund, and the portfolios, I should mention, it's managed by Treasury staff, and they have the very highest rating from S&P.
Okay.
So there's more than 260 agencies and nonprofits that use Invest, and they have about $1.3 billion invested. And I really want to expand that number.
Sure.
And that means we have to do a lot of outreach to do that. But why it's good is that it has same-day liquidity without any penalties, and a lot of other benefits. And so if anybody wants to learn more about it, they can call our office, or they can go to patreasury.gov/invest. We are just updating all of our applications, our brochures, and I'm really pushing it when I go out there, because I think,
What does that do for the state? Like, it certainly helps the people to manage, get their cash working for them. That's super important. We've been pushing that for a lot in the last 9 months, really. But it seems like work for you guys. Is there a fee on that?
It's a very small fee.
Sure. I'm sure you could do it cheaper than anyone else could privately.
We can. And a lot of the money markets accounts, they require you to maintain a minimum balance. You can your number of transactions are limited. You can't have same day liquidity. So this is good for short term or long term.
Yeah.
And a lot of these nonprofits, they'll have like a checking account, and they might have like $50,000 sitting there. Well, why not stick it in Invest, and at least you're going to earn some money on it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be a great solution for a lot of people.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people kind of being, not, I guess I would say lazy, but it's really just forgetful. Because for the last 5 to 8 years, we've had just anemic rates, and it wasn't worth it. I used to say to people, like, should I move this money? I'm like, well, you're not going to get much over there. If you need it and you got to keep it safe, that's fine where it is. But right now, there's a big difference.
Exactly, which is why I hired somebody. And it doesn't require, it's not a lot of staff from Treasury. It's just a handful of people. But like I said, it does have the very highest rating in S&P. And I think that we have to make sure that, that our local governments and our nonprofits know about this.
Yeah. You know what's smart about that, Stacy, is that you, with just a little bit of effort on your office, you can help so many people. That's leverage. That's really smart. So
Thank you.
all right, I've complimented you too much. Well, I just have kind of unless you have anything else, I just wanted to ask you, we're short on time here, so I want to wrap it up, but do you like your job, or I feel like you love your job. I've talked to you several times now, and every time your energy level is here, and I'm like, what is she eating?
I do love my job, and I like it so much more than I ever thought I would.
Mm.
Of course, I've never had a public office. I've done public service, but not public office. And so I had envisioned a lot of, bureaucrats.
Yeah.
And that, it would probably make my head explode. And what I found was, so Treasury is an independent agency. And I think we're unique from a lot of agencies. So we're all back to work. We're in the office. I have so many dedicated public servants. And when I took office, a lot of times when you take political office, people bring their own staff with them. They clean house. They get rid of everybody.
Right.
I kept everybody.
Okay.
Because these positions, they require so much institutional knowledge.
Right.
And
experience counts.
yeah. And I had people calling me, what are you doing? We know you're not a politician, but you have to bring your own people in. And I said, guys, I ran a battalion in a war zone. I think I can put together my staff.
Yeah.
If I need your advice, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a wonderful, dedicated team. I'm very blessed.
Yeah. That's a great way to manage it. I'm impressed. Not that you're looking for my approval, but so you enjoy being treasurer of the Pennsylvania. I keep wanting to say the state of Pennsylvania. It's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I wish we could change that. I don't know what the difference is. Don't educate me on it.
Yeah.
It's still the state to me. I really appreciate the time. I'd love to steal you again in the future, but
Absolutely.
Honestly, you have so much going on. I really appreciate what you're doing. Everyone in our office was really excited that you were going to come in and do this interview. And I know our clients are going to get a lot out of it. And I hope there's a lot of folks that watch this that are not clients of Stonehouse who are going to get a lot of bang for their buck. I think you dropped a lot of knowledge in 30 minutes of time. So,
well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.